Hi, welcome to the course of Strategic Management. My name is Ami and I will explain to you material on the course, particularly the strategy level, form and implementation. Well, even in the previous session, we discusses about the basic of strategic management. In this session, I will deliver more about the strategy level, mainly the corporate level strategy. So the agenda will be divided into several topics, several sub-agendas. And in this first agendas, we're going to discuss more about the definition of the corporate level strategy itself, and then the level of diversification. And then we will go on into the next agenda with the reasons of diversification, which includes the value creating, the value neutral, and also the value reducing diversification. So now we jump into our first agenda for sure. This is the corporate level strategy, and what is actually the corporate level strategy? So in definition by Heath et al., the corporate level strategy is actually a specifies actions of a firm which takes to gain a competitive advantage by selecting and managing a group of different businesses in competing in different products of markets. So if in previous session we discussed about the business level strategy, which mostly focusing on the single industry or product market, now we're going on into a more advanced strategy, which called as the corporate strategy, which usually focuses more in the different product or market strategies. So this is why we call it the corporate level. So when your firm are actually operating in a different product or market in your business, then might be you can call your firm in a corporate level strategy. So why is actually and how does this corporate strategy occur and also being operated? As in our first discussion, that the corporate level strategy might be portrayed through the different product market, which actually portray the diversification of the firm. The diversification itself, of course, possessing a different level from one to another. We call it in a three different level, includes the low level of diversification, the moderate to high level of diversification, as well as the very high level of diversification, which actually the most complex of all. And in each this diversification, of course, they have a different specification. So now we're going through deeper on the diversification level. So let's start with the low level specification. So the low level specification is actually divided into a different level also, which includes the single business or a dominant business. So for example, the firm A, if it is a single business, then we may call it that 95% or more the revenue of the firm is actually comes from a single business. So if their business is only food, then the 95% of their income or their revenue stream is actually depending on that food business. Only that. However, a dominant business, we still can call it as the low level. It usually lies between the 70% and 95% of the revenue comes from a single business. So maybe this firm has A and B business, for example, food and maybe the beverage business. And then the 70% are still lies in the food business, while the rest 30% are lies in the beverages business, or maybe the domination is between 95% and 5%. We still can call that diversification, but in the more lower level of diversification. So now we're going through into the higher level of diversification. We call it the moderate to high levels of diversification. So this is the more specified of diversification. There are the related constraint diversification. So in related constraint diversification, the revenue is less than 70% of revenue comes from the dominant business. So even previously we talked that 70% of the revenue comes from the dominant business. In the related constraint, it is less than 70% of the revenue comes from the dominant business. And usually, all of the businesses are sharing product, technological, and distribution linkage. So they usually have a varied products or a varied business. However, the backbone of the business are still relatively the same and having a quite similar linkage. For example, maybe a financial services will usually have a various range of product. However, they still have the similar backbone of the business. So, but they have a varied range of revenue stream. On the other hand, there is also the related link diversification, which usually divided as the last 70% of the revenue comes from dominant business, and there are only limited links between the business. For example, from the diversification, the linkage between the business is only the marketing part, maybe, or maybe only the technological part, while the other part of the business are completely different. The operation are different, and so on. That we can call it as the related link, not as related constraint. If in the related constraint, most of the product having a very heavy linkage between one and another. And last is the very high level of diversification. So this is the total separated diversification, which are actually unrelated from one to another. And in this case, less than 70% of the revenue comes from the dominant business. So maybe if you have about 4 stream of businesses, each of the businesses have their own contribution to your revenue stream in your companies, and there are no common links between the businesses. So all of them should be operated differently. There are no linkage on the business backbones and so on. So that is the level of diversification based on the complexity of diversification, which actually resembles the corporate strategy. So that's all for our current material. We will discuss more about the diversification reasons as well as the evaluation for the topics in the next video. For summary, the corporate level strategies actually aim to this firm with varied operational business or diversification of product businesses and so on. And the diversification are included in varied degree, include the low level, moderate to very high level, which resembles its complexity. Thank you and see you again next time.